Transformers Rise of the Beast, the 7th addition to the Transformers franchise, hit theaters last weekend, but how does it measure up to the rest of the series? That's what we're talking about in this week's episode of Ink Cinema. And it starts right now. Oh, girl, my butt is too big for this. Aloha and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jake, and on this episode of Ink Cinema, we're talking Transformers Rise of the Beast. As I review this movie, I'll be creating a linocut cyanotype of an original Transformers-inspired creation I call ROARKNOX. Stick around to the end to see how it turns out. There will be no major spoilers unless noted, so make sure to check the chapters below if you haven't seen the movie yet. Directed by Stephen Caple Jr., Transformers Rise of the Beast is a fast-paced, flashy summer flick that packs in the best of the 90s, if the 90s had a bunch of Autobots running around. Set in 1994, a new faction of Transformers, the Maximals, join the Autobots as allies in the battle for Earth. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at a critical score of 52% based on 166 reviews and an audience score of 91%. The movie has received a cinema score of A- and an iMDB rating of 6.6 out of 10. As of the weekend ending June 11th, 2023, it's done $170 million worldwide, on a domestic opening of $61 million. This movie is a fun, easy watch that keeps you engaged the entire time and brings back what we loved about the original. It also brings its own flavor to the table. The action is actually enjoyable in this one. It turns out a camera that doesn't shake like a malfunctioning animatronic makes the viewing experience much easier on the eyes. Dramatic lens flares aren't necessary when big bad bitches are tearing each other apart. It gives us the chance to appreciate all the detail put into these intense fight scenes. Before we dive deeper into this movie, we gotta talk about how we got here. This is, after all, the 7th movie in the Transformers franchise. A big fan of the comics and toys, Steven Spielberg signed on to produce a Transformers live-action adaptation in 2004. He then chose Michael Bay to direct, even though Bay wasn't super into the idea. I'll tell you what he said about it later. But he wanted to work with Spielberg, so he signed on, and the rest is history. Michael Bay began his career directing music videos, which led him to direct Bad Boys, Armageddon, Bad Boys 2, and The Island. He was making a name for himself as a big-budget action director, but little did he know his self-proclaimed stupid toy movie would go on to become a defining moment of his career. Michael Bay increased the presence of military and tried to make it a more serious film based on apocalypse movies of the past. After the success of the first Transformers film in 2007, he went on to make a sequel which became the highest-grossing film of the franchise. But after number 2, writers Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman didn't return for the third. They said, "This is so wonderful that it deserves to be fresh all the time. We just felt like we'd given it a lot and didn't have an insight for where to go with it next." The co-writer of the second Transformers movie, Revenge of the Fallen, Aaron Kruger, became the sole writer for number 3, which would be titled Dark of the Moon. As the sequels progressed, they made less and less money, with the last two being Age of Extinction grossing $314 million and The Last Night grossing $161 million. That means that The Last Night saw a 49% decrease from the one right before it and a 65% decrease from the first. In the late 2010s, Hasbro saw an opportunity to refresh the franchise with a prequel movie, Bumblebee, featuring Haley Steinfeld. After the success of Bumblebee, they decided this was the direction they wanted to go in order to bring a fresh perspective to the Transformers universe. Which finally brings us to Rise of the Beast, which is a sequel to 2018's Bumblebee. Rise of the Beast was originally scheduled for release in June of 22, but was delayed to June of 23. Sandwiching this movie between Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and The Flash might turn out to be the right move amongst a busy summer of big movies. Its numbers are trending upward, but with a budget of $195 million plus marketing, it's got to continue to do well in order to make this a box office success worthy of a trilogy, since it was announced that Rise of the Beast is the first of 3 new Transformers films. The movie introduces us to a new faction of Transformers, the Maximals: Ape-Link, Optimus Primal, Airazor, Rhinox, and Cheetor. Returning Transformers Optimus Prime and Bumblebee are joined by newcomers Mirage, RC, Stratosphere, and Wheeljack. The villains of this movie are the Terracons, led by planet-sized big baddie Unicron. The Terracons include Scourge, Nightbird, Battletrap, and are assisted by insectoid freezers and moss-covered scorpion Predacons named Scorponox. Peter Cullen is back as Optimus Prime, the iconic 1987 Freightliner FLA semi-truck. And we gotta protect this man at all costs, because no one can do it like him. In this movie, Prime's unmasked face was modeled after Cullen himself. Peter Cullen once again brings his A-game as we get to know an Optimus we're not familiar with, one who doesn't like humans. We see his heart soften as he realizes that Autobots and humans aren't all that different. A stellar addition to this film is Liza Koshy as RC, a Ducati 916 motorcycle. RC and another newbie, Wheeljack, were supposed to be included in the first film, but they found it difficult to explain robot gender, and Michael Bay apparently thought RC was too small when she was in motorcycle form. But as we see in this film, RC's gender doesn't need to be explained, and her size allows her to tumble like an Olympian. Liza is a YouTube creator who successfully made her transition to mainstream media, and I'm so glad that a name from the internet world made it into a movie of this magnitude. It's a huge win for her, and I can't wait to see what she does next. Now, a different iteration of RC makes an appearance in 2018's Bumblebee, and in the animated version, she's quite the salty queen who has some of the best comeback lines in the series. I would have loved to see more sass from her in this one, but in sequels we'll hopefully be given more of her story. Wheeljack, played by Cristo Fernandez, is a sweet, nerdy Autobot who transforms into a 1970s VW Type 2 panel bus, equipped with a delicious Mexican accent. I loved the details on this guy, and as Andrew pointed out, he was styled with glasses and seatbelts that doubled as suspenders. Really nice touch. The clear standout of this film was Mirage, played by Pete Davidson. Mirage is old money, making his first appearance in 1984. Originally a 1979 Formula One racer, he's become a Porsche 964 Carrera RS 3.8. Yes, cars! Whatever that means. Lots of numbers. Must be expansive. I'm usually touch and go with Pete, but I think he brought the perfect flavor of comedy that this movie needed. In early screenings that took place last summer, it was said that this character was quite insufferable. So I'm glad that the editors went back to the drawing board, took some stuff out, put some stuff in, because to me, Mirage is a big part of what makes this movie what it is. Pete's performance was reminiscent of another movie I reviewed recently, Sebastian in The Little Mermaid. Every time Mirage is on screen, he's got something to say, but it never felt annoying or unnecessary. I found myself laughing at a lot of the jokes, no matter how cheesy. Pete described Mirage's voice as a mix between Jim Carrey's The Mask and Bugs Bunny. I like that the writers finally had the opportunity to take the comedic sweetness of Bumblebee and infuse it into a character who can talk. I liked Mirage's Porsche form, but I thought his fighting form was a little lackluster. Something there was missing for me. Mirage is actually in Michael Bay's Dark of the Moon, but they called him Dino, and he was completely different. He also had an accent. The best line of the film came from Mirage when he says, "Work friends, you've been inside of me." That joke almost didn't make it in because it made Paramount nervous, but during early screenings, it got the biggest laugh from the audience, so they fought to keep it in, and I'm glad they did. And during Pride Month, love it. The conservatives are shaking. But if they're shaking at that, they should look at the fucking name of the movie. I mean, it's called Transformers. Uh-oh, trans! Watch out, girls. They're coming for your children, apparently. They got toys and stuff in stores now and everything. Oh my god, propaganda. Side note, I'm glad they didn't use Bumblebee as a crutch in this movie. He was in it just enough, and it was cool to see him have a big comeback moment. But riddle me this, with arms crossed. If a surge of Energon can bring Bumblebee back, why can't it fix his voice box? That is the question of the century, folks. I gotta take a moment to give flowers to my girl Michaela J. Rodriguez, who plays a Terracon ninja, who transforms into a Nissan Skyline GTR R33, whose name, Nightbird. She's sickening, and even though she's evil, she's a bad bitch in every sense of the word. The screenplay is written by Joby Harold alongside writing teams Darnell Metayer and Josh Peters, as well as brothers Erich and John Hoeber. When I saw the trailer for the first time and realized it was going to be set in the 90s, I was excited to see where they were going to take it, as the stakes have been the highest they could possibly be in basically all the past movies, and this one was no exception. As usual, the planet Earth is at stake. The story isn't some big, revelatory meta-commentary on life, but it never tries to be something that it's not. It's a fun, fast-paced ride that does give us a couple of slow scenes between human characters, which I liked. The chemistry between Anthony Ramos' Noah Diaz and Dominique Fishback's Elena Wallace was compassionate and patient, and I like that the writers didn't make their relationship a love story. Michael Bay was so quick to infuse sexuality, or rather sexualization, into his movies that it was refreshing to see a platonic pair of newly made friends that are focused solely on the mission and, staying alive. As with many movies in the genre, characters are thrown into a messy situation quickly, and they've got to cope with the circumstances without thinking twice. These two are exceptional actors, and it's good to see two leads of diverse backgrounds portrayed here, instead of going with another. I'll let you fill in the blanks on that one. Anthony Ramos is a fantastic leading man. You can tell that Hasbro saw a lot of potential in him, as it's clear he'll be returning in future movies. Spoiler warning for a Noah Diaz plot point coming in 3, 2, 1. When he transforms and gives us Mighty Morphin, Power Rangers, Ultraman, Kamen Rider, I loved it. It was exactly the kind of unexpected level up this movie needed in order to differentiate itself from the movies of the past. Although, I would have liked to see Anthony's face covered in a cool mask, because it was giving unsettling CGI Timothée Chalamet in Dune. Anthony has kind eyes that light up every shot he's in, and his New Yorker upbringing was perfectly infused into this character, as he does with all his other roles. His arc made sense as he had something to fight for, and therefore his character's climax was even more exciting. He's also just tasty to look at, and I'm devastated that the writers didn't put a Michael Bay sexualization, shirtless, fresh out the shower moment. So I'll do it. This movie was well cast. Wittney Horton handled the casting, and I hope they give her the keys to more projects like this one in the future. She's got an eye for talent that matches the characters so well. I will say that the screenplay has some super weird, cringy moments in there, as if an older person was trying really hard to write in a young person's voice. They didn't hesitate to include classic Transformers lines, like when Optimus Prime says, "I'm going to take back Scourge's key, and then take off his head." Just outrageous drama for no reason. It's giving soap opera, it's giving telenovela. It's exactly what I needed. The music beautifully infused classic 90s hip-hop that drove all the mega action moments. The tracks were placed just right, and it felt truly Brooklyn. Bumblebee's epic comeback is accompanied by LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out. There's also a hot non-90s rap track made for this movie, featured in the final fight and the end credits, called On My Soul, featuring the actor who played Noah's friend Erich, Joby Wigway. Let's talk about the crossover. Yep, I'm talking about the surprising twist in the final scene that Noah was being recruited to be a G.I. Joe. This rumor has been floating around the stratosphere since March of 2013. The director of the second G.I. Joe movie, John M. Chu, who has now become a huge name in Hollywood, directing Crazy Rich Asians and currently working on Wicked Parts 1 and 2. He expressed interest back then in developing a Transformers/G.I. Joe crossover. A Chu-led crossover would be epic and infused with diverse casting and engaging storytelling. There's also an intentional musicality that he brings to all of his projects that I'd love to see on a big budget action flick. I thought that Agent Burke, played by Michael Kelly, was an agent with Sector 7 from the original movie. You know, the ones who were the keepers of the Allspark, discovered by Archibald Witwicky, the ancestor of Shia LaBeouf's Sam Witwicky. But no, they cleverly used this opportunity to lace in another Hasbro property. G.I. Joe was originally slated to be adapted in the early 2000s, but then the US invaded Iraq. So they switched to adapting Transformers, which turned out to be the right move.
Like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as. And
they've got to tread carefully as they navigate this storyline because even now, people aren't into stories glorifying war and the military in general. I really enjoyed Henry Golding's Snake Eyes, and honestly, I'd love to see him come back. Because he is another one that is easy on the eyes. Easy on the snake eyes, that is. We don't know anything about where they're going to take this crossover, but to me, it's clear that Anthony Ramos will be booked and blessed for a long time. There's also an animated prequel in the works with Inside Out and Toy Story 4's Josh Cooley tapped to direct. It's called Transformers 1 and will explore the origins of Cybertron. Transformers Rise of the Beast serves that robotic fighting action we've been craving while also reminding us that we've got so much to fight for. Now hold on now, print reveal coming right after this. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Ink Cinema. Check back next week for my review of The Flash. Thanks for watching. My name is Jake Okoa, and may the power protect you always. I'll see you next time. Bye.